Hey guys, it's Bam Bam here. I want to talk to you today a little bit about creating your very own build order. Now, creating a build order in StarCraft is a pretty murky field, especially because, when you're starting to learn StarCraft, when you're starting improving on StarCraft, really all you do is you look at a build order, online or through one of the GSL matches or wherever, and you just basically copy whatever the pros are doing, right? Well, today what I want to do is I want to start with a completely clean slate, and I want to give you, the general guideline as to how those build orders are created. And hopefully, with that knowledge, you can go out, create your own build orders, and start completely trashing the ladder. Now, before we begin, we have to understand that there are three types of build orders that we can create, right? The first type of build order is the all-in type build order, right? The all-in type build order is basically your one-hit, punch style attack. It usually is on one or two base, and it's an attack that happens within the first, 5-6 minutes of the game. And then once that attack is dealt with, it's just done, right? The build order just stops there. These types of build orders are very easy to create, but they're also very easy to counter. And at the same time, once someone figures it out, they know what to look for. It's kind of a dead build at that point. It's usually one of those builds you want to reserve for, a best of X series, and then you just throw that out there to try to get a cheap win, which is at times very effective. The second type of build order is on the complete opposite of the spectrum, which is what I call the macro type build order. Macro type build order or compositional type build orders are basically build orders where you get your perfect army. This could be something like Ling Bling Infestor in ZVP. Like, say you wanted Ling Bling Infestor to really work hard in ZVP. So, what do? Well, you work on, what are the Lings good at? You try to get to a point in that build order where the Lings can basically carry your entire build. You find the strengths and weaknesses of that build, and then you find out how to get to that point while getting that composition, and you finding out how to engage with that comp and everything about it. Those types of build orders are very difficult to create, but at the same time, they're very difficult to deal with when they're executed very well. And they're usually the type of build orders that you see, in tournament-based, situations. They're the build orders you throw out where, you feel very safe, very confident because it's a very crisp build order. Now, in the middle, you have the hybrid type build orders. The hybrid type build orders are basically where they have that one punch style attack, but it's not necessarily an all in the sense that there's no follow up, to that build order. Rather, it's more of a case where yes, there is that one punch style. It like say it's a 1-1 or a 2-2 type timing, but there's a fallback to it. The timing that you did, it leads into something else, and it's generally a much more developed type of all-in build order. And it's designed so that the initial attack deals some damage, maybe not game-ending damage, but enough damage for you to continue the game, at an advantage, whatever that advantage might be, and your entire, position or timing led up to the fact that you can continue the game as normal, however you define normal to be. So those are the three types of build orders. All right, and now that we know that, I'm going to try to show you a little bit of, going through and actually creating one of these build orders. Now, for the sake of timing and to keep this short, I'm going to go and actually create an all-in type build order from scratch. All right, so without further ado, let's just hop into the game right now. Okay, so now that we're actually in the game, we now can start talking about our build order a little bit. I know I mentioned previously that we're going to be making a all-in type build order, but the process we're going to be going through is exactly the same kind of process you'd do if you're trying to make a hybrid or a macro type build order. The only difference would be the amount of refinement you do with those build orders. So, that being said, let's start talking about our all-in type build order a little bit more. So, what are the things that we need to first determine? Well, for one, we need to know against what matchup are we talking about. For simplicity, let's say ZVT. We want to do an all-in on a ZVT matchup. Okay, that sounds fair enough. Now the next question is, well, what time do you want this all-in to hit? Because, depending on the time will determine a lot of factors about our all-in. And you know what? The two medevac marine timing has become pretty popular recently, so let's do an all-in that actually punishes that, right? An all-in that punishes the 2 medevac marine drop timing. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, well, what time does the 2 medevac marine drop happen? And if you don't know on top of your head, there are three different ways we can figure this out. One is we can load up a custom lobby, 1v1, and actually do the 2 medevac drop ourselves and see what time we get it out. Alternatively, you can look up WCS, GSL, or any other major tournament where you have really good players playing, and you can see, well, Innovation, he got his 2 medevac marine drop timing done at the Zerg's base at like 5 minutes and 10 seconds, right? And so you go, oh, okay, so maybe that's the fastest build order you can get it done in. Maybe. The third way is you can just load up a replay and see when when your opponents get their 2 medevac timing down, and you can use that as your benchmark. All right. So we're actually just going to load up a replay right here, and we're just going to look and see. Uh, Here we go, poke one. We're just going to look and see when does his 2 medevac timing actually hit us. That's what we want to figure out right now. All right, so we're just gonna zoom past this replay. Bum 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 bum. And actually, we're just gonna put the vision on Pokemon because we're only concerned with right now about his opener and when he gets his 2 medevac timing out, right? So we're just zooming by, and things that we also want to look at because we have this replay out is that we want to see what kind of what kind of defenses the Terran has, what kind of setup they have um, with besides the whole 16 Marines, the 2 medevacs. So we're just zooming by, getting a starport reactor, and oh, okay, so this is pretty interesting. So because we want to hit round this time, we have to expect that the wall on the front of the, Terran's base here is going to be walled off. That's important to note because then that gives us more information about our all-in. Like, say we wanted to do a Baneling all-in. Well, if we were to hit it, around this time, we'd have to be able to have enough banelings to hit this, break open this wall because I imagine he's going to put like an engineering bay or another depot right here, and we have to also break this wall most likely, which means that's already 10 banelings we gotta build just to break walls. It's stuff like that that you have to think about as he decides to put an engineering bay. All right, so we see that Poke Bunny. All right, he did a pretty standard opener, I'd say, and he got his medevac drop down by about the 5 minute and 10 second mark. That's all we need to know. 5 minutes 10 seconds, and he has 3 Marines back at home, so he has about 19 Marines to defend a all-in that happens at about 5 minutes. So, all right. So now that we know that, we can then start pulling up our notes. Okay. So let's see. There we go. Let's just pull up our notes, and we're going to say 5 minutes is going to be our timing for this all-in. Otherwise, then 5 minutes is obviously 300 seconds. And by the way, it's probably going to be a lot easier for you to work with seconds and then start converting it to minutes later. It's going to be more clear later on. But just for the record, just start dealing with seconds when you're first starting off. Okay, so now we need to decide, okay, well, what do we want to do with our all-in? Well, there's a few things I'm seeing that we could possibly do. Let's see here. So, we're just going to be brainstorming some ideas. Let's see, we could do a Baneling bust. That's a possibility in this situation. There's also the Ravager all-in that we could possibly do. Oh, I don't know why it's auto doing that. Whatever. What else could we do? Well, we could probably do a Nidus. I think like a two-base type Nidus build. Um, let's see. What else could we do? Let's try something with infestors, right? Now, just for the sake of time and in order to keep this YouTube video short, we're only going to be looking at one of these. So let's just do the infestor, an infestor type all-in build order that hits at 5 minutes. Boy, okay, that sounds pretty out there, but you know what? Why not? Let's try it. Normally, what you'd want to do is you want to test all four of these in, in order, and you want to, compare and contrast each type of, all-ins. Okay, but for now, let's just say we want to hit our infestor timing all in. Okay, so uh, the very first thing we have to do is we have to look and see how long does it take a lair to create. It takes 57 seconds. See, now this is why we work on seconds. So it takes 300 seconds minus 57 for our lair. How long does it take an infestation pit? It takes 36 seconds for an infestation pit. All right, minus 36 seconds for infestation pit. And let's see, what else do we need to know? We need to know how long does it take an infestor to build? It takes it 36 seconds for an infestor to build. All right, so we add that for an infestor. Actually, this is 37 for the infestation pit. Um, let's see, what else do we need to know? Energy. Let's talk about this. We also need to know. Uh, Obviously, just making a bunch of infestors isn't really going to help us. Ideally, what we'll do is actually have an infestor that has a fungal growth. Ooh, wouldn't that be scary? It hits at 5 minutes. So now that's something we also need to know is, well, how long would it take an infestor to gain 25 energy? And I ask you that because we're obviously, with this build, we're not going to get pathogen glands, right? Because pathogen glands, it costs too much money and it takes a really long time to upgrade. And by God, it's a 5 minute all in. We don't need to worry about what happens at the 6 minute mark because we're going to win at the 5 minute mark. Okay, so we need to now figure out, how long it takes an infestor to gain that much energy. Well, there's actually a really easy way to figure that out. And well, there's actually a really easy way to figure that out, and that is by pulling up Liquipedia. Liquipedia right here, and we're going to be searching StarCraft 2, and we're just going to search up energy. Right? There we go. And we're just reading through here. Blah, 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 and here we go. A natural energy regeneration of 0.7875. Boy, all right, so that's exactly what we wanted to know. So we now go back over here. Let's see, hold on. Pull up our notes, and we add in right here that our energy takes 0.7875. So with that in mind, we just divide, let's see, 25 divided by 0.7875 takes us 32 seconds to gain that extra 25 energy to get the fungals. So 32 for energy. And now we can actually just subtract all of this out, and that would give us, let's see, 307. I'm so great just doing this on the fly, gotta say. And that brings us to a total of 138 seconds. Or, alternatively, it takes us, let's see, 2 minutes and 18 seconds. That is when we have to start our lair. And we have to start our lair so that we hit every single timing. And we hit those timings, and then we'll have, an infestor or multiple infestors with that. Huh. 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Well, we're gonna have to actually look in the game. Hold on. It's 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And at this point we just look at the Zerg's perspective, right? We just want to see. Um, Hold on. Let's load it up. Bum, 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 bum. All right. 2 minutes and 18 seconds. Okay, so I obviously went hatch gas pool here, which is pretty interesting to know because now we know if you go a hatch gas pool, you will have 100 gas, which could be spent on Zergling speed, or we can use it to start our lair. You know what? I'm realizing this is a pretty ballsy all in because at 2 minutes and 18 seconds, we're going to have to not get Zergling speed. We're going to have to turn this into a lair immediately, and we can only get a single queen. Huh. Okay, but let's just start rolling with it, okay? So now we have the makings of our build order, okay? So what we can do now is we can say this is going to be our build order 1. And in build order 1, what we're going to be doing is we're going to do, let's say, 18 hatch, um, 18 hatch, 18 gas, 18 pool. And this is obviously standard for a hatch gas pool opener. Um, and then after that, we see that we're about 27 supply. Oh, hold on, let me just back up a couple seconds. We see that we're at about, well, okay, about 27 supply. 27 supply, and then that's when we go lair. And I guess we should probably add in a 20 overlord. So you see, we're already starting to make a little build order here, just based on all this was based on previous knowledge. Just a hatch gas pool opener, um, as is the 20 overlord, or you can go 25. It doesn't matter. And then the 27 lair, which is what we found interesting. Now, now that we know all of that, we now have to start figuring out the rest of this build order. And how do we do that? Well, we're going to have to load up a game, and we're actually going to have to start off by doing this build order here. So the way we do that is we go up to multiplayer, custom, and we just load up a random map. Apotheosis, sure, why not? Ooh. Okay, so we're actually loading up, and all we're going to be doing here is we're going to be doing our build order like we mentioned. And we're just going to see, can we hit this 5-minute timing for our infestor? The numbers add up that they do, but it's good to actually get a sense of, well, where does the build actually work, right? So you see, I mean, I'm not actually going to be spamming or anything. I'm just going to be looking to hit those timings like I mentioned, and then, you know, try to determine when I should be getting gas, right? Maybe going a hatch gas pool isn't the thing I need to do. Maybe what I need to do is I need to take a gas first and then expand and then get a pool. Maybe. Because this is a very gas intensive build order, right? Because we're planning to have, I don't know how many infestors we'd be able to afford at this point, but that's more math that we'll be doing later on in this video. Alright, so at this point, I'm just going to be, I guess we can speed run this whole thing, and then we can, start talking a little bit about it after. And done. Okay, so now that I've actually run through the build by just the start of it, we can now go look and start looking at the replay, and then start talking a little bit about the things I've noticed and things that we have to change up a little bit, right? So let's just load up that game I just threw up there. All right. And the things we're going to be looking at, for one, is we're just going to look at the build where, when I had the larva infestors, when I had, what supply was I when I built that infestation pit. And another thing I found out was that when I made the original build order list, a little preview list really, um, I didn't include Zergling speed, which is very important to note because if we're going to be doing this infestor all in, where we have Zerglings as well, we're actually going to need to know. Oh, I just completely bypassed that. Whoops. So let's see, what supply were we at? Okay, we're at 34 supply. All right, so let's just add that to our notes real quick. All right. So we just pull up our notes and we say, okay, 34, we have um, infestation pit. All right, and another thing we have to look at is we have to know when can we actually get Zergling speed so it matches up with this 5 minute timing. And then for that, uh, to know that, we have to also know, well, mm, when should we actually get Zergling speed? Because we don't really have the gas to actually afford Zergling speed right away. Let's see. Let's say we want the Zergling speed to be done by the 4 minute and let's say 4 minute and 40 mark. I think that's pretty good because we're going to be hitting at around that time. Yeah, 4 minute and 40 mark. That's good. That's good. So let's see. 4 minute and 40. So that puts us at 280 seconds is when we actually need the Zergling speed to be started, or to be finished rather. So 280 minus, well, let's see. When does Zergling speed, how long does it take? 79 seconds. Okay, so we say 280 seconds minus 79 seconds. That means 201 second is when we have to start Zergling speed, right? So we say 201 seconds divided by 60. Let's see, it's 3 minutes and 21 seconds. That's when Zergling speed has to start. So we just move this over. Whoop, 3 minutes and 31. Well, let's just round up, say 320, right? So 320, let's see, 38, we get ling speed. Get, oh, hold on, 38, we're going to get ling speed. Okay, so, and again, the way I got to that was the fact that we took the, let's see here, is that we took the time we wanted to attack, which is 4 minutes and 40 seconds, and we said, okay, that's a total of 280 seconds minus 79 for how long it takes Zergling speed to actually make, and that got us to that 3 minute and 20 second-ish timing, right? Which means that done perfectly, Zergling speed will be done with this all in. So that's the start of it. That is the easy part. You got the general gist here, right? Now, there's a few things we have to start talking about. The first, most glaring one is the fact that we need to know how many infestors can we afford, and more importantly, um, when or how much gas can we actually get? Pretty reasonable questions. And you know what? Because we're only getting infestors and they take a pretty long time to build, and also they're pretty hard to reinforce, we're probably just going to get the gas and then just put them all on minerals, right? I think that's a pretty reasonable assumption because let's be honest, we're probably not going to reinforce with infestors with this build order. So, hmm. So now we have to start talking about economic management. Now, what do I mean by economic management? Well, specifically when I'm talking about this build order, I'm talking about, well, what is our core unit? And we realize, okay, it was the infestor. Well, the infestor is pretty gas heavy, so how do we get the most amount of infestors that we possibly can to hit this 5 minute timing? Well, if we actually look, well, actually, let's look at our notes rather. Let's just start calculating all of the gas that we're actually going to be using in this build, right? So we're going to be using, say, 100 gas. That's going to be used for our lair. Another 100 that's going to be used for speedling. Another 100 gas that's going to be used for the infestation pit. I'm just going to call it IF. If the if pit. And that leaves us with a question mark of how many infestors now can we afford? So we're up to 300. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we're going to use 5 infestors. 5 infestors sounds really good. So that's a total of 750 gas. And if you add all that up together, that's about 1050, right? Total of 1050 gas. Can we get that with this build order? Ah, I don't know. That's a pretty hard bargain. So the way we go about calculating if we'll actually have the gas for this, well, you first have to figure out how much gas you can mine in a minute that's fully saturated, right? There's two ways you can do this. One, you can look up Wikipedia. They have all the answers, literally all of the answers. Or number two, you can just take my word for it because I'm always right. So we're going to look and see. All right. So you can just take my word for it and say that it takes. Well, hold on. There we go. That we get about roughly 164 gas a minute, right? 164. So now we can start working forwards a little bit. We're going to start looking first at when we take our first gas, which let's see. Okay, so we take our first gas about 130. We already know with our build order that we're going to be building all of our infestors at about that 3 330-ish mark, was it? Yeah, 330-ish mark. So we already know that because this is going to be going on for about 2 minutes, that's going to be, let's see, 164 times 2. That gives us 328 gas from the first geyser. And let's just add this to our notes. Okay. First geyser. Whoop. And that's going to be 328. Our second, we'll get to in a moment. And our third and fourth, we'll look into right now. Let's just make some room there. All right. So our third and fourth gas. Let's look at that first. Well, we're going to have to take them, obviously, after our expansion here gets down. And now, I would say, is the earliest time when we can actually get these gas geysers if we decided not to mine any of these minerals. So we can get the gas geysers down at about 230-ish, and they'll be done, and we'll round up. They'll be done at 3 minutes. So, you know what? We're going to go ahead and say we're going to have, let's see, 164 times 2 gas geysers. But because they're not mining a full minute, we'll say they'll be mining about 80% capacity. Well, maybe not 80. It's going to be about 90. Uh, Hold on. Let's. All right, yeah, about 90%. So we'll say 164 times 2, and then times that by zero point 0.9. That's going to give us about 300 gas because they're not mining the full minute. Um, and then the second gas geyser. Now this, we have to figure out when are we going to take it. If we decided that we wanted to take it right here, um, which is going to be when we take both of those as well, that would also give us another 168 times 90, whatever that is, right? So 168 or 164, I should say. 164 times 90, that'll give us another, again, I'm rounding, 150. And that gives us, let's see, 328, 150, and then 300, about 7. So we'll say about 800. Oh boy. Okay, that is way off from our numbers. So that means that we can't go up to 5 infestors. And remember, we are assuming that we can get the gas geysers up and running as soon as we possibly can. Um, I guess maybe we could. Let's see. Let's look at the second gas geyser. Let's see if we can actually. Yeah, okay. So we might be able um, actually take the second gas geyser after our pool. Oh boy. All right, so assuming we take our, let's see, where are we at? Right here. Okay, let's assume we decided to take our gas geyser at 130. That means, not, with 30-second build time, we'll have this gas geyser running at 2 minutes, which means we'd get, a minute and a half of mining, right? All right, so let's see. If we pull up a good old trusty calculator, instead of 150 gas, then with our second, which was with our normal timing that we were going to get that gas, if we get it at 130, then we're looking at, let's see, 164 times 1.5, we're looking at 250 gas. Ah, that brings us up to, all right. Brings up to 900. Hmm. How much gas? Let's see. Do we need for 4 infestors? Well, that was 600 gas for 4 infestors. And that puts us up to 900. Huh. So, perfectly executed, assuming we get this gas geyser down by 130, and we also take these gas geysers as soon as this natural is done, then we'll have enough gas for 4 infestors. And then because we're just going to be rallying lings behind these infestors, we can just take off gas completely from all of them and then just send them all down the natural to start mining minerals for those zerglings. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So now that we know this, we're now going to start, well, shoot. We're now going to start modifying our build order a little bit, and then we're going to go into another practice game, and we're actually going to start, looking into this. So let's see here. Um, we'd want this second gas geyser at 18 supply. So we're gonna add that 18 gas. Wow, that's actually kind of hilarious. 18 gas, 18 pool, 18 gas. Fantastic. 20 OV. Well, I'm just gonna leave 27 lair for the time being, even though that's probably not accurate right now, just because we're not gonna be at that supply count. Um, All right, and I'm going to say 20 double gas at natural. Double gas at nat. And you know what? Maybe we should move this overlord instead of being a 20 overlord. Let's just move it down to here, which is a 25 OV. Um, and this is probably going to be a 20 lair as well. So, and again, this is all, fluid. It's not, set in stone at all. And let's see. Yep, everything else looks good. Just have to double check again. When did we say we wanted to get our ling speed? We wanted to get our ling speed at huh, I didn't list it. Shucks. All right. Um I'll just calculate it real quick. Let's see, 280 minus the 79 for build time is 201 seconds. 201 seconds, otherwise known as 3 minutes and 21 seconds. We'll just round up and say 320 is when we want to get our link speed. That's when link speed has to start. And yeah, okay. So now we have this build order, and what we're going to do is we're going to start jumping into another game, another practice lobby. Isn't this fun? This, I think, is the best about what StarCraft has to offer, right? Where you're just testing out things, reiterating over and over, and then eventually you have something, right? So once again, I'm going to be doing a solo queue, and then I'm just going to play that music and fast. And welcome back. All right, guys. Today I'm actually going to be showing you a replay of a game that I played on ladder. When I last left you off, I went ahead and I started practicing a little bit in custom lobbies where I started reiterating a little bit on the build order. And after, much deliberation, this right here is the build order I decided to come up with. As you can see, it's a more flushed out build order and it's much more crisp. As far as the double gas goes, I've decided that in order to hit the perfect gas count that we need, you actually need 2 drones at both natural gases in order to hit this gas timing that we need. Instead of just doing 3 drones on both gases or just 3 drones on one gas. In this replay, what I decided to do, sorry, is one gas with 3 drones on the natural, and you'll find out along with me is that that is not enough gas. Instead, what actually ends up happening is that I don't have enough gas to build, or I don't have enough minerals, I should say, to build all the infestors I need, or enough gas. So with this updated build order that you actually see on screen, that's after played this ladder game, and it really goes to show just how good, um, or how necessary it is to reiterate on build orders that you've been practicing. So in this game, like I mentioned, it's just going to be straightforward game, like I mentioned in the like I mentioned previously, where we have to get both our main gases down at a certain time and our natural gases. Again, like I mentioned, I only took one gases, at the natural because I was, debating, well, can we actually squeak out more minerals? And I decided to the fact that after this game, the only way to squeeze out more minerals is if we actually drop or stop making drones at a certain time. But at the same time, I was like, you know what, maybe that's not worth it. Because maybe at a certain point, it's just, worth it just to wait the extra couple of seconds. Because remember, when we were making our build order, we were rounding. And the reason why we were rounding is for situations like this that we find out in our build, where it's like, well, we could come up with the exact perfect time where we need this certain thing, or we could just round it up, and any situations that we find out later where um, we need more minerals or whatever, it's not going to hinder the build all too much. It should still hit at that 5 minute mark because of all the rounding we've been doing. And so, as you'll see, I decided, after I got my initial gas count, I took out all my drones from the gas. I started mining purely minerals. I took an early third base, and then all of a sudden, here I have three infestors. The fourth one is on the way. And again, this fourth infestor would actually be up here if I decided to take both these natural gases, um, which you saw in the updated build order list, which of course I'm also going to be posting in the description down below as well, just in case as a refresher. So we see I'm coming up here. I'm coming up here, and oh, I see his 16 Marines. He did the 16 Marine 2 medevac build order. Well, boom! Oh! Oh! Well, let's do it again! Oh! And you see how quickly those Marines evaporated with no combat shield and no medevacs. Oh my god, the Infestor is fucking broken again. Oh, Jesus. And then we see, oh my god, his entire natural is free to just ravage here, right? And then we look at, his camp. He has 3 Marines, like we mentioned, 3 Marines, 2 medevacs left over, which is great because this is exactly what we saw when we saw Bunny do his build order. When we hit at that 5 minute mark, he had his 16 Marines, 2 medevacs, plus 3 Marines. We know that he has 3 Marines up in this on top of his ramp. We know that. But everything else, it's like, well, we've kind of already won at this point. This build order did what it needed to do. It killed off all the SVs at the natural. We got 16 workers killed down here. Wait, no, 2 workers. Whoa, okay, he was pretty fucking quick on that fucking medevac. But regardless, we're going to be getting him to lift off this command center. We're in a position where we can actually launch infested Terran eggs up here and actually break through his ramp without needing to get banelings. And on top of it all, we still have this third base. Now, the question I have for you, we see that this Terran was going for a 2 medevac 16 Marine drop. And we see that this all in hit at the 5 minute mark like we wanted it to. Now, the question I pose for you is it actually feasible? Like, is the build order that we went through an actually complete build order that you can go ahead and do on any kind of platform? And my answer to that is hell no. It's not even close to being done. All I showed you on this game, right, is I showed you that I completed the build order. I did exactly what I set out to do, and it beat the exact same thing I wanted it to beat. But does that mean that the build order itself is complete? Hell no. Hell no. Why? because there are like five unanswered questions I can immediately think right now, right? One, what happens when the Terran does not do the 2 medevac marine drop? Do we scout? How much does that drone scout cost us in this build order? Number two, when we look at this build order, right? We look and see how tight it is. Well, what happens when the Terran decides, well, okay, I'll just go Hellbats? Uh, what do we do? What do we do when the Terran goes Hellbats? What do we do when the Terran goes Banshees? A single Banshee! Could you imagine a single Banshee chasing all these infestors when these infestors are down, in this middle area, just trying to get over to this natural? Or how about this? What happens when this entire natural is walled off? This Terran, he didn't wall off. We expected it to wall off, it didn't happen. Or what happens when the Terran is pre-split against these infestors? What do these infestors do? They just launch their eggs and hope for the best? Like, there are so many unanswered questions with this build order that, it's foolish. It's foolish to assume that this build order is actually complete. Because in order for a build order to be complete, it has to be in a situation where you are comfortable no matter what the Terran may throw at you. Even if it's that 5% that you assume in auto loss, if it's anything else, you assume like, oh, okay, this build order can easily win. Because let's just head back into the game right here. Um, Again, like we said, if this Terran decided to do Hellbats, if he built a tank, if he went Banshees, you see all these things. If he went Liberators, what are we supposed to do? There are so many unanswered questions with this build order. What if he scouted and he split his Marines? All these questions, they're unanswered. And until they're answered, we cannot say that this build order is complete. However, if you are able to answer all those questions with this build and are still able to decide, you know what, this build is pretty fucking powerful. There are a lot of Terrans doing this 2 medevac marine drop, and I know enough about the build where I can stop like a Hellbat or a Banshee type push, then you know what, this might actually be very very powerful. Again, like I mentioned, we already got the gas counted properly. The build order I showed you before, it has the double gas. Don't go a single gas, you're not going to get enough infestors in time. um but now the question is, now what you have a working build order. What do you do? At this point, the build order is not done. It still needs at least a bare minimum of 50 games. 50 games ZVT, do this build order over and 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 over again until you start hitting not only all the timings, but until you can start really grasping the limits of this build order. Can this build order actually survive against a tank evac type build from the Terran? Can it survive a Liberator or a Banshee type opening? I personally don't have the answer. However, can you also add in Banlings with this build? Maybe. If you decided to get a gas before your natural expansion, would you have enough gas for banelings? And could you use those banelings to actually bust open this wall? Or even better, just use one baneling on the fungal marines you saw earlier to actually crush every single marine. And then you have much more uh, leeway with your infestor energy to just spam out infested Terrans. These are all questions you have to ask yourself when you're building your own build order. And you know what? I'm not even going to finish this build order. I'm going to leave this build order for you to complete. I already gave you the build. I gave you the framework that you need to actually win. Now here's a, you know, now you have homework. If you actually want to improve, how do you improve on this build order? What do you do after this build order fails? Like maybe you did enough economic damage so that the you're slightly ahead but not really. What do you do then? What's your transition? Do you go straight to Hive into Ultralisks? That sounds very reasonable. Or do you go try to go into a Mass Infestor Roach Ravager style? Or better yet, do you start going to Mass Lings? You have a lot of minerals. Like you saw me here, I'm floating. Like what, almost 900 minerals, and I already threw down a natural or a third base. Do you throw down another macro hatch and a fourth base behind it? I don't know. I don't have these answers. These are all questions you have to raise yourself and then reiterate when you start practicing more and more on this build order. And that, my friends, that is what it means to actually build a build order. It's when you actually have reiterated countless of times into a position where you feel more than confident that your build can, yes, it can do the thing you wanted it to, but you also know all the strength and weaknesses behind the build, and you know how to actually counteract all the different situations. Like, here's an example. You see two medevacs. You did this build order. Two medevacs. Do you spam out fungal growths to keep track of the medevacs to keep them still and stunned? Like, is there enough fungals to actually kill off those medevacs? Or do you start spamming off infested terrans with two fungals and then hope you kill off the both medevacs and in it the 16 marines? Or do you just let the medevacs go? Do you save that infestor energy for the fungals and the infested terrans you'll need when you actually break the terran's main? That again, that is more questions you have to ask yourself when you do build orders. And it is with that questioning that you create an extremely powerful and extremely solid build order that I know you will crush the ladder with. This has been Bam Bam, and I hope to see you again soon. And remember, we're all in this together.